Hi, Jenny, and welcome back to Entrepreneurcast. It's so great to have you back on the show with our weekly show. So, Jenny, let's get started. You are a visibility queen. So, just let's get going with, whatever you want to kind of expand on today on visibility, what visibility is about, and what should people really know. Take it away.
Okay, so hello everyone watching and listening. I'm nicknamed the Queen of Being Seen. So the first thing that I want you to know is that visibility and putting yourself out there, getting out there, isn't actually about me, it's about you. That's the first most important thing to know. It's why I get out of bed in the morning. So there are 5 key elements of being visible and getting out there. And one of the biggest misconceptions is that in order to get out there, in order to be visible, in order to be seen, that you have to be an extrovert and really loud and shout and wear bright colours and show off, or you have to be the sort of person that's in everyone's face. And that's simply not true. Bizarrely, I found this out when I was an employee. I was an employee on a little bit of money, and I made this decision that I wanted to rise through the ranks, get good career progression. And fast forward, in under 3 years, I quadrupled my salary. I ended up moving to a different company to do this as well, but quadrupled my salary. This was in 2006. It was only in 2012, 6 years later, that I realised that people might even be interested in how to raise their profile and get out there more. And I then had this really bizarre exercise where I had to sit down and piece backwards in time, look back to my past and join the dots, because I had to ask myself the weirdest question on the planet: what did I do to increase my credibility, my gravitas? I'd gone from working for this one company, wanting career progression, and then getting to a point where my next position would have been to sit on the board, which I actually didn't want to do. So I went through the ranks. I was senior level management. And when I sat and looked at the behaviours and the things that I did, I realised that these 5 key things that I'll take you through right now, and we'll expand on in future episodes, but these five key things are actually what I did to be visible. So just in case you're thinking, and I hope you're a skeptical learner, because if you're thinking, well, why is that such a big deal? So what? I ended up being a national training manager for this financial services company. One thing that you need to know about me is that I'm not university educated. I have no degrees of any sort. So on paper, somebody could sit and say, when Jenny grows up, she is going to be a fill in the blank. It wouldn't have been a senior management. It wouldn't have been looking after 14,000 clients, of their best clients. It wouldn't have been responsible for the development of staff and the skills of staff. It wouldn't have been that. So I reckon if I could do all of that with the experience that I've got and my very humble beginnings, then there is absolutely no excuse for anyone out there not to do it. There are people out there that are brilliant. I see them every day. I work with them every day. But unfortunately, they think they're not good enough yet. They don't have that value yet, or they've got to go on another course, or they've got to be brilliant, or they've got to have spoken on stages. I see you guys every day, and the businesses that you run are brilliant, but you don't think they are. So hope you've got pen and paper, even if it's the back of an envelope, just grab something now. And I want you to write down this word, because a lot of people that meet me, they get a feel for my vibe. So it's no coincidence that the 5 steps you'll remember. If you think of a vibe, so that's V for Victor, I, B for Bravo, E, S for Sierra. So write it down the side of a piece of paper, and I'll take you through the first 5 key things that you need to know. So in order to raise your profile, to get the recognition, to be seen as the expert, and to get out there in your business, and even more so if you're a service-based business, so if you're like a coach or a consultant, an author, if what you sell to people is your value and they can't see it, then you really, really need to listen to this even more. So first thing, V. V in this case stands for visibility. Now that might seem obvious, but you need to make a decision to be visible. That sounds so kooky and so silly to say. when you say to yourself, and I know you've all done this, watching or listening to this, I know that there's been a time in your life where you've just decided to do something. It's that moment where you've gone, I want to do something. No, I've decided. And you go for it like your hair's on fire, literally. So you go for it. So decide to be visible. Think about the people that you serve best, the clients you serve best, the place you sell your books best, the way you want to speak best, and make that decision, number one, to be visible and how. And if you're an introvert and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to go out and speak in front of people, don't worry. You can write it, you can record it, you can speak it, you can do so many like visibility things in different ways, but just make a decision with how you want to be visible. So that's the first thing, be visible. Second thing is, I put this in two ways, either make an impact or leave a really great impression. Now, some people, and notice whichever one it is for you, you'll feel more comfortable with one of those terminologies and maybe more comfortable with a different one. So for some of you, making the impact feels good. You want to make an impact on the world. You want to, make your mark in the world. But for some of you, you'll be going, oh my gosh, I don't want to make an impact or make a mark, but I want people to think well of me after they've met me. It's the same thing. So choose whichever side of the coin you're on with that, and do what you need to do to make an impact. We'll go into a lot more detail as these series go on. Now, the third thing is the most important thing. It's being able to describe what you do for people. It's one of those questions, like, I know that I've networked with Svietlana in the past, and, I've spoken to people and said, oh, so what do you do? And it's almost like the energy drains out of them, the colour runs out of their face, and they kind of go, that's me taking a deep breath, and kind of like look really startled, and you can see them thinking, okay, I'm going in. Describing what you do should not be that difficult. The reason that it's difficult for so many people is that we listen to other people telling us how we're supposed to do it. Truth of the matter is, depends on your personality, depends on who you are, depends on your vibe. So there's a framework to follow in certain scenarios, certain circumstances. Like if you're working with children and you go up to a 4-year-old and give them a 60-second pitch, how well do you think that's going to connect you to that child? So it depends on what you do. But one of the ways that people fall down is not being able to articulate what they do. And not even what they do, but what they do for other people. So next time somebody says to you, what do you do? Imagine that I'm whispering in your ear on the end of that sentence, for them. It changes the game. It now means that you don't say, oh, I run coaching calls on Skype. I do 6 of them. I sell packages of 3. You then start to say, I help people, and you define the types of people you help. You talk about the result that you get for them, and you let the person know how that feels. Now, if the person in front of you is your ideal client, they'll say, tell me more. If they're not, they'll understand what you do, and they'll say, I know someone who needs your services. So it's a win-win situation all round. So that's a really big piece to take away. Now, the fourth piece of the vibes, the vibes piece is the E. So it's energy. The quickest way I know on the planet to zap your energy is to get into overwhelm, is to have too much to do and not know how to layer it out, not know how to plan it in your day. And many people at this point identify there's a problem and they'll do some sort of time management. What I discovered over the years with clients that I worked with, especially when I kind of rolled my sleeves up and worked with them one-to-one, is that what they try and do is they take a calendar, imagine a calendar as a blank, kind of a glass container. They take their calendar and they try and stuff as much stuff into it as possible. It's a bit like the story of the guy with the jar and the pebbles and the sand. Like, the simplest thing to do is look at how much time you have got to spend. If you're studying, block out that time to study. Don't touch it, don't interfere with it. If you've got to take the kids to school or do the school run, block out that time first. If you know that you want to be with your partner and make them dinner every night, block out that time, and then block it out, not mentally, but on a piece of paper or on some form of system where you can see it. Then you can look back and work out which gaps you have. This is like the difference between if you're sitting on a train and you know you're going to be on a train for an hour, you can then fit in a 1 hour task, not a task that's going to take you 3 days and try and squeeze it in. This also stops, and this is a terrible entrepreneurial trait, those of us that burn the candle at both ends. We might get up early and go to bed late, or we might just go to bed late and struggle to get up early because we feel tired. So there's a lot to do around your energy, and whether you speak it out or not, people feel it. You know, if you're tired, you might not articulate well. If you're tired, you might feel a little bit lackluster. So the fourth part is energy. Now, the fifth part is being able to sell your value, sell your worth. And I'm going to be honest with you, that's usually an inside job. Once you know deep down your value and your worth, it's a lot easier to articulate again and sell it to people. That's whether you're doing like old school sales and selling over the telephone or in a meeting, or whether you're standing from a stage. Because, you know, I'm a speaker, and one of the things that I think is really important is being able to sell your products and services in a way that isn't a countdown on the wall and run to the back of the room. That's a skill that you might need for what you do. But when people understand the value that you can contribute, that's a game changer. So just to go through those 5 again. First one, being visible. Choose how you want to be visible. You can learn the rest or make it up later. The second one, make an impact or leave a lasting impression. How do you want to be thought of or spoken about when you leave the room? The third one is be able to describe what you do. So be able to describe what you do for them. Okay, remember to add that bit on the end. It changes it from what I actually do to how I help people. It's much more palatable. Fourth one is energy. Let's stop with the burnout. You know, this is a trait that I want to eradicate from all business owners, entrepreneurs. You don't need to burn out to be brilliant. Okay, you don't need to burn out to be brilliant. And then the last part is how you speak about what you do and how you sell your value. So how do you sell your value? So in a nutshell, that's about 3.5 years worth of content pushed into one. My question is, I'd love you to think about what out of all of those 5, if not just one of them, what will you do differently as a result of listening to this? And if you're really ambitious, which I know most of you are, then take each segment. What will you do in terms of visibility that you've never done before or that you want to do differently? How will you make an impact or leave an impression in a way that you haven't done before? You know, how would you describe what you do for them? How will you do these differently? How will you stand out differently? How will you make an impact differently? How will you talk about what you do differently? How will you organize your day, your week, your month differently so you're not burning out? How will you articulate the value, the actual value that you give to people differently? How will you look to sell your services? A lot of people don't like sales. That's okay. If you know you don't like sales, you can do something about it. So how will you do that differently? That's that in a nutshell.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us today, Jenny. I think it's important for everyone to figure out that way of being visible and to understand what visibility is about, and how if you run your business, you actually need to stand out and be visible with a vibes code from Jenny. So
yeah, let people feel your vibe. Let them know why you're different.
thank you so much for your message today, and I really look forward to our next episode with some more visibility nuggets.